You ever wonder what a leader is really reading? I mean, not for a photo op, but what's actually on their nightstand. Well, if you want to understand the blueprint for a nation, a pretty great place to start is the leader's bookshelf. So today we're going to step inside the personal library of one of the 20th century's most transformative figures, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, to find the intellectual DNA of the Turkish Republic.
Okay, so let's just start with the biggest question of all. I mean, it's one thing to win a war, right? But it's something else entirely to build a modern state with a new identity, new laws, a new vision for the future, all from the ruins of a 600-year-old empire. Ataturk did exactly that, and the clues to how he pulled it off are hidden in the margins of the books he was reading.
And look, he didn't just read a few books here and there. He absolutely devoured them. We're talking about a collection of at least 3,997 books that he personally read and studied. This wasn't just a hobby for him. No, this was a mission. This was the raw material he was using to literally architect an entire country. So our goal here is to basically do what Turkish researchers have been doing for years. We're going to be intellectual detectives. We're going to sift through the evidence he left behind, the underlined sentences, the notes in the margins, even the choice of books themselves, to try and reconstruct his thinking and see how a library became the foundation for a republic.
All right, our investigation starts with clue number 1, and it takes us right into one of the most sensitive and foundational topics for any society, its relationship with its own history and religion.
So take a look at this. The first thing you've got to notice is what this book isn't. It's not a religious text for prayer or devotion. It's a critical 10-volume historical analysis of Islam, written by an Italian historian. The fact that this book was one of the most marked up books in his entire library, well, that's our first huge clue. He was engaging with his culture's religious history not as a passive believer, but as a critical strategist.
And you can literally see his mind at work right here on the page. So on the left, that's the original Ottoman script that he was reading, and you can see his own personal markings. Then on the right, that's the modern Turkish transcription that researchers put together so we can follow his train of thought exactly. Sometimes the most powerful clues are actually the simplest. In this passage, which is talking about women fighting alongside men in early Islamic history, Ataturk makes this one single note in the margin. Kadın, woman. With just one word, he's flagging a theme that would become absolutely central to his reforms, the role and the status of women in society. He's digging through history to find precedents for his future vision. And this really brings his method into focus. His reading was intensely practical. He even developed his own system, often using this double X to mark passages he found important. And what was he marking? Almost never theology. It was almost always about power, politics, leadership decisions, military strategy. He was literally mining the history of Islam for lessons in how to build and run a state.
Okay, let's move on to our second clue and see how this all connects. Because reading history critically was one thing, but he also had to build a brand new, positive identity for his people. An identity that was distinctly Turkish, not Ottoman, not just purely Islamic. And for that, he had to look way, way deeper into the past. And he found his source material right here in the Orkan inscriptions. Now, if you're not familiar with these, they're basically the birth certificates of Turkic language and identity. They were carved on these huge stone monuments in what's now Mongolia, way back in the 8th century, so centuries before the Turks converted to Islam or even founded the Ottoman Empire.
So by diving deep into these ancient pre-Islamic texts, he was doing something truly radical. I mean, think about it. He was deliberately leapfrogging over 600 years of Ottoman imperial history to connect his new republic with a more ancient, purely Turkic heritage. This was basically nation-building through archaeology.
This slide really just lays out the massive scale of the change he was engineering. The identity of an Ottoman subject. That was all tied to the Sultan's dynasty and this multi-ethnic religious community. Ataturk was building the Turkish citizen, whose identity was based on the nation, allegiance to a secular republic, and pride in an ancient national story. Which brings us to our third and final clue. Because Ataturk wasn't just some historian or a cultural theorist. He was a stone-cold pragmatist. He needed to understand how modern states and, revolutions actually worked in the real world. And for that, he turned to books just like this one, a general history textbook for high schools. This tells you something really important. He was studying the world as people understood it at that time, analyzing the contemporary political landscape to find a model that could actually work for Turkey. And check this out.
Here he is, underlining passages about the political administration of the Russian Empire. So he wasn't just reading about Turkey. He was studying how other huge powers were organized, how they controlled their territories, and, this is the crucial part, what mistakes they made that led to their downfall. He was learning what not to do.
And honestly, what could be more revealing than this? Here, Ataturk is reading and marking up a passage about the 1908 Young Turk Revolution, a revolution he himself was a part of. He's literally studying his own history, analyzing the mechanics of how political change happens, how you take power, and how you build a new order. He was a student of revolution right to the very end.
So after following these three clues, through religious history, ancient identity, and modern politics, the final blueprint of the Republic, well, it really starts to come into focus. And this is it. This is where all the clues just snap perfectly into place. This is the blueprint. Each line of his intellectual research maps directly onto a pillar of the Turkish Republic. His critical reading of religious history, that became the intellectual foundation for a secular state. His deep dive into ancient national origins, that forged a new nationalist identity. And his pragmatic analysis of world politics, well, that gave him the model for a modern republic. It just becomes so clear that his library wasn't some passive collection of books. It wasn't a room full of dusty objects. It was an active workshop. It was the laboratory where the ideas that would define an entire nation were tested, refined, and hammered into shape. And maybe nothing sums up his whole approach better than a line he himself underlined in one of those history books. It says, "A man is great according to the degree that his thoughts and actions serve his time." He wasn't just reading for himself. He was looking for a way to pull his entire nation forward into a new era. And that kind of leaves us with the final thought, doesn't it? We've just peeked into the mind of a nation builder by looking at his books. But it really begs the question, if we could get a truly honest look at the reading list of any world leader today, what kind of blueprint for our future would we find? And would it give us confidence, or maybe cause for concern?